At my mother's funeral, a four-star admiral walked straight to me and asked, "You still have the key?" Those words hit me like a thunderclap. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. My name is Ava Collins, 31, and I've been serving as a Navy officer for over a decade. Standing there in the crisp morning air, surrounded by the muted whispers of mourners and the scent of flowers, I thought I understood my mother, Commander Elizabeth Collins. I thought I knew her entirely. But the moment Admiral Richard Hale, one of the Navy's most powerful officers, approached me with that question, I realized I had no idea. Elizabeth Collins had always been a private woman. She never spoke about her missions, her deployments, or the work that had earned her accolades and respect within the Navy. At home, she was warm, loving, and careful never to let her career shadow our family life. But the night before her last deployment, she had handed me a small, unassuming key and said only, "Keep this safe." That was it. No explanations, no hints, just a key and a command to protect it. I had tucked it away at home, out of sight, out of mind, never asking why, never imagining that it might one day become more than a simple keepsake. I didn't understand its significance. Not until now. The funeral was quiet. Most people had already left. But Admiral Hale arrived in a sleek black car, soldiers snapping to attention as he stepped out. His presence was commanding. Everyone straightened instinctively, and for a moment, the world felt like it had shifted, leaving only the weight of what he was about to say. He walked directly to me, eyes focused, expression unreadable, and asked again, "You still have the key?" Then he added something that made my heart stop. "Don't lose it. Your mother died protecting it." I froze. What had my mother been guarding? What did the key unlock? And why had her life ended in a way that tied directly to it? I held the key tightly, feeling suddenly small in the vast shadow of my mother's secret world, realizing that the life I thought I knew was only a fraction of the truth. And at that moment, I knew. Discovering the truth behind this key would change everything. My understanding of my mother, of myself, and perhaps even the world she had served in silence. The moment I got home, the key felt heavier than ever. Ava Collins, 31, Navy officer, stood in the quiet of her apartment, the funeral's echoes still fresh in her mind. Her mother, Commander Elizabeth Collins, had been a hero, but not the kind the public ever knew. She had lived quietly, lovingly, shielding her daughter from the dangerous world she had spent decades navigating. And now, with her gone, that world was suddenly pressing against Ava from all sides. Ava sat at her desk, pulling out the key from the protective envelope her mother had given her. The metal was cold, unassuming, like a simple keepsake. Yet, it carried the weight of a lifetime of secrets. She remembered the night before her mother's last deployment. Elizabeth had pressed the key into her hand, her eyes steady, her voice firm. "Keep this safe. One day you'll understand." Ava had never asked why, never imagined she would have to. Now, alone in the apartment, she thought back to the little clues she had always overlooked. The encrypted folders on her mother's laptop, the unexplained late-night meetings with uniformed colleagues, and the occasional letters that arrived with military insignia and no return address. Her mother had always been careful to keep her missions separate from family life. But now it seemed that life was intersecting with hers, and that the key was the bridge. Ava retrieved her mother's journal, a slim, leather-bound book she had found tucked away months ago. Flipping through the pages, she noticed entries about operations, security protocols, and contacts she had never met. The language was precise, coded, and occasionally urgent. A sense of both awe and fear tightened in her chest. Elizabeth Collins had trusted her with more than just memories. She had left a legacy, a mission. Then Ava noticed a small envelope tucked between the pages of the journal. It was addressed to her, written in her mother's familiar handwriting. "Ava, you have the key to everything I've protected. Trust no one fully. Follow instructions exactly. Mom." Her hands trembled. The quiet life she thought she knew had been a carefully constructed facade. Her mother's final message was clear. It was time to step into her world. And just as Ava took a deep breath, ready to open the envelope fully, her phone buzzed. A new message appeared. "Meet at the docks tonight. Come alone. They're waiting." Suddenly, what had been curiosity became urgency, danger, and the unknown. The first step into her mother's hidden world had begun. The docks were dark and quiet, the water lapping against the pilings, the fog thick like a veil hiding secrets. Ava Collins approached the meeting point her mother's journal and the mysterious message had directed her to. Navy instincts were on high alert, every shadow and sound scrutinized. She gripped the key in her pocket, feeling the weight of her mother's legacy pressing down on her. Tonight was no ordinary evening. This was the first real step into a world she hadn't known existed. As she neared the end of the dock, a figure emerged from the mist. Tall, sharp, authoritative. Someone she didn't recognize immediately. Yet something about the presence felt familiar, commanding respect even in the silence. The officer handed her an envelope, sealed with a Navy insignia she hadn't seen before. Inside were instructions, coordinates, and a list of names, all tied to ongoing classified operations. Her mother had clearly trusted only her to follow these steps. The journal had hinted at the scope of Elizabeth Collins's career, but seeing it laid out in this concrete, operational format was overwhelming. Every mission, every contact, every note was a puzzle piece, and Ava realized she was being called to assemble it. Fear mixed with adrenaline. She had been trained for danger, strategy, and responsibility, but this was different. This wasn't just Navy protocol or a tactical mission. This was personal, inherited, urgent. Her mother had risked her life to protect something, and now it was Ava's turn. Then, as she studied the documents, her phone buzzed again. Another message, anonymous, cryptic. "The people expecting you tonight are not your mother's friends. Be careful, they'll test you." Ava froze. This wasn't a routine handoff. This was a trial. Her heart pounded, and for a moment, she questioned whether she could handle the weight of her mother's secrets. Every step forward carried risk, not just for her, but for the people her mother had dedicated her life to protecting. The fog seemed thicker now, shadows stretching like fingers. Ava realized that tonight would decide if she was ready to step fully into her mother's world, or if she would be swallowed by the unknown. Her grip tightened around the key. She had a choice: turn back and cling to the life she knew, or follow the path her mother had set, into danger, responsibility, and truth. And as she took that first step toward the waiting figures at the dock, a chill ran down her spine. She had no idea what or who was truly waiting for her. The warehouse at the end of the dock loomed in the fog like a fortress. Every instinct told me to pause, to reconsider, but I couldn't turn back now. Ava Collins approached the entrance, the key pressing against her palm, the envelope from the officer burning a hole in her pocket. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "Keep this safe. One day you'll understand." That day had arrived. Tonight, the full weight of her mother's secret life would demand her attention, courage, and trust. Inside, the warehouse was dimly lit, filled with crates, filing cabinets, and maps pinned meticulously to the walls. Each item hinted at operations Ava had never imagined. Photographs showed her mother in tactical gear, in foreign ports, alongside people Ava had never met, people whose names now appeared in the folder she held. These weren't simple missions. These were high-stakes, covert operations, intelligence work her mother had carried out quietly, leaving no trace for the outside world. Suddenly, a familiar, commanding voice cut through the silence. "Lieutenant Commander Collins." Admiral Richard Hale stepped out of the shadows. His presence alone made the room feel charged with authority. He didn't waste time. "Your mother died protecting this," he said, gesturing to the key and the documents in Ava's hand. "And now it's your responsibility." Ava's stomach tightened. She had expected some explanation, perhaps a story, but this was a handoff, a call to action. The Admiral outlined the operations her mother had safeguarded, the people depending on their secrecy, and the critical intelligence stored behind the key. Every decision, every action she now took, could have enormous consequences. The room seemed to close in. The key wasn't just a token, it was a literal gateway to a world of strategy, risk, and responsibility that her mother had trusted her to navigate. Ava realized her training, her years in the Navy, had prepared her for this moment, but not for the emotional weight of inheriting her mother's legacy. As she absorbed the magnitude of what lay before her, she felt a mix of fear, awe, and determination. Her mother's quiet life, the woman she had thought she knew, every detail had been a facade masking a life of immense courage and sacrifice. Ava looked down at the key, her fingers tightening around it. She understood now. Stepping into this world meant embracing responsibility, danger, and her mother's legacy. It meant carrying forward everything her mother had protected, no matter the cost. And at that moment, she knew the journey was just beginning, but she was ready to face it. Standing in the quiet of the warehouse, the weight of the key heavy in my hand, I finally understood the truth about my mother. Ava Collins, 31, Navy officer, now realized that Commander Elizabeth Collins had lived a life far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Her mother had protected secrets that could influence national security, had carried out covert operations, and had trusted only a few people, now only Ava, to continue her work. Every subtle sign, every quiet habit, every mysterious note made sense in an instant. Logically, the mystery was solved. The key her mother had given her was not a trinket. It was a safeguard, a literal and symbolic passage into her mother's world. Admiral Hale's appearance at the funeral, his questions, and the warnings were all part of a deliberate handoff. Elizabeth Collins had ensured that her legacy, the people and operations she protected, and the information she safeguarded would remain secure in capable hands. Ava was now that person. Emotionally, relief, awe, and grief collided. Tears filled her eyes as she realized the magnitude of her mother's courage. All those years, Elizabeth had silently sacrificed, shielding her family from danger, choosing secrecy over recognition. The pride of finally understanding, coupled with the grief of her loss, overwhelmed Ava, but it also strengthened her resolve. The consequences were immediate. Ava's life changed dramatically. She now carried responsibility for classified operations, earning respect from senior officers who had known her mother personally. Her decisions would have serious, real-world implications. She could no longer live a simple, predictable life. The stakes were higher than ever. Every choice she made could affect people, missions, and outcomes that she was only beginning to comprehend. Finally, Ava visited her mother's grave, key and folder in hand. She knelt and whispered, "I understand now, Mom. I'll protect your legacy. I'll honor everything you gave your life for." For the first time, she felt a sense of closure, a sense of purpose, and a connection to her mother that went beyond grief. Ava stood, saluted, and turned away. Her mother's quiet life had been extraordinary, and now Ava's path was clear. She had inherited the responsibility, the courage, and the mission. She would carry it forward, not as her mother's shadow, but as her successor, ready to face the challenges ahead with the same unwavering resolve. The key was more than metal, it was trust, and Ava would honor it forever.